Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, join us as we get together to talk about our favorite things in the world, even in the midst of all the BS that's going on, movies, movie news, some television stuff. And joining us today here, unexpectedly in studio, his internet was out, so he had to get over here as fast as he could. That's why we're starting a little bit late. But man, it's worth it when you can have Robert Meyer Burnett in the house. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, it is another fine day. It's a Friday. Normally movies would be releasing today, but we live in trying times.
We live in different times. And listen, guys, but there is a ton of stuff that we have to cover today, like a load of stuff. So we're going to be foregoing top comments today like we did yesterday, but we got like 4 off the tops to do. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive right into it. The first thing we're going to talk about here is this. You know, things were starting to look like there might be a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. Got some good news the other day that China, the first country really hit hard by all this kind of stuff, was starting to reopen some theaters. Now, granted, it was only 4.5% of their theaters, and granted, it wasn't any of their major change, but a few hundred theaters had reopened in China. They were going to be showing some rerun movies like Avengers and Avatar and all that kind of stuff. Well, unfortunately, the Chinese government, and actually, you know what, it's probably wise. It was probably wise. But after having like more cases than they wanted going on, they decided to step in and they reordered the closing of the theaters again. Now, there is word saying that they will probably reopen back up again fairly soon. But for now, they wanted to close things down. And again, it is probably the wise thing. It is probably the smart thing for them to do. At this particular point, it was just, damn it, man. It was like that little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel that we were starting to see. It started to look really good. Rob, you're hearing about this from me closing. I mean, disappointing, but it is ultimately the smart decision right now. Is it not?
You know, at times like this, you can only err on the side of caution, and I think it's probably a pretty good idea. It's also an indicator, I think, John, of how things are going to go down here as well. We have to be vigilant. Look what's going on in New York, and now what they're talking about in New Orleans and other cities, Detroit. This is a very serious, very real thing, and it needs to be. I think China doing this was prudent, and I think it was probably a very good thing, and it's something that we should look at and know that I don't think we're all going to be back in the movies by Easter. So.
Yeah, by Easter seems hyper optimistic. I think that's hyper optimistic at this point. And hey, that's okay. Do the right things now. Get the BS behind us as fast as we can. But I will admit, it's a little disappointing for me to hear because, you know, we've been in this to see a little bit of a glimmer and then it's taken away. But hey, doing the right thing now always pays off a little bit further down the line. Question is, guys, what did you think about this and about them reclosing their theaters? Disappointing, yeah, but probably the right thing. How do you feel about it? Jump into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, let's go on to this next thing. On a little bit more of a positive note, this next off the top is talking about Morbius. Now, Morbius is a project that a lot of us have been very intrigued by. I mean, Morbius, living vampire in and of itself, is a very interesting character, but also the fact that, yet again, it is a Spider-Man character in a world without Spider-Man? Maybe. Much like Venom was when it came out and everybody said, Venom will never work, and then lo and behold, it worked, made over $800 million. But still, a lot of us knew, okay, this could be really interesting, but it could also be a car wreck. Then the first trailer came out, and a lot of the people, even a lot of the naysayers were like, okay, that trailer was pretty good. And of course, the Michael Keaton appearance, the Spider-Man graffiti on the wall got everybody talking. It was really, whether the movie turns out to be great or horrible, I think you got to acknowledge the trailer was pretty damn brilliant with all the different things that they did in it. It is very, very smart marketing. Well, they're not letting the whole shutdown right now stop them on continuing their momentum with the marketing at any rate, because right now they've just released a new poster for Morbius, and it's not just 5 floating heads representing all the cast of the film. It is a head, but it looks pretty damn good. Rob, this is the new poster they just put out for Morbius. The black and white with the color of the vampire self underneath. Listen, it's not like we've never seen posters kind of like this before. We have, but it's a very interesting choice, and I think a really effective choice for a character like Morbius himself. I gotta tell you, I look at this poster, I love it. I love the poster. I just think it's a beautiful piece of art. It kind of encaptures the whole idea about what the movie is. I like it a lot. Now, Rob, we haven't had a lot of time to dwell on this particular image, but you've had a chance now to take a look at it. What do you think about it?
I think it's neat. I don't know if I really buy. I'd have to look at it close up. How the teeth work. Like, it'd be kind of neat if that lip was a snarl. It kind of looks like those teeth are just pasted on there. But the idea behind that poster it's really neat. I like it.
Yeah, it works for me. And again, I like the idea that right now you continue on. Like, there's nothing stopping these studios from continuing on with their marketing plans, right? Like, especially if a movie's a little bit further away like this, why? Especially when it's free.
Yeah.
Like, just dropping a poster online doesn't cost anything. It's free. Bloodshot the other day, releasing the first 9 minutes online. That doesn't cost them anything to do. Just drop them online. So why not in a period like this, keep the momentum going? Question is, guys, as I bring it up here one more time, what do you think about this Morbius poster? I actually think it looks really quite good. I like it. Not the most original one we've ever seen. I think it actually looks pretty good. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know what you guys think of it. All right. Our third off the top topic that we need to cover here today is yet another sad chapter in the sad tale that has been the Hellboy movie that came out a little while ago. A Hellboy movie that I'm going to tell you, I had a lot of optimism for, and I was really excited about. I mean, you had the comic book creator behind it. You had a really good director attached, getting David Harbour, who a lot of us are starting to like a lot as the lead. And, you know, the first trailer put a lot of people off, but then subsequent trailers started to look a lot better. I was excited for it. I ended up being, like many of you guys, I was very disappointed in the movie. And I think a lot of you guys were. David Harbour has not exactly handled the situation well. You know, everything from, remember a while ago, we talked about a story where he basically was doing an interview and threw everybody else under the bus. Said, I did my job. I did a good job, but everybody else sucked making this movie. It's like, come on, David, why are you saying stuff like that? Well, apparently David Harbour now, he is now putting the blame elsewhere for the failure of Hellboy, and he is actually directly blaming the fans. To be specific, the more hardcore Hellboy fans is who he is blaming on this right now. If we go over, this is coming to us from our friends over at Joe Blow, whose headline is Hellboy failed because of Hellboy fans, according to David Harbour. This is the exact comment that he wrote. Okay, I've got it here. This is David Harbour talking. I think it failed before we began shooting, because I think that people didn't want us to make this movie, Harbour then added. Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman created this iconic thing that we thought could be reinvented, and then fans, certainly the loudness of the internet was like, we do not want you to touch this. And then we made a movie that I think is fun, and I think had its problems, but was a fun movie, and then people were just very, very against it. That's people's rights, but I learned my lesson a lot of different ways. So that's kind of Harbour's assessment of the situation. And that's fine, and I accept that. Here's the problem. Rob, while I think he is correct in saying that there were a lot of people who came out and said, we don't want you to make this movie, he's not wrong. I mean, there were a vocal segment of people saying, if it's not Ron Perlman, we don't want you to make this movie. That wasn't the majority of the movie-going audience, but there was certainly an element of fandom who was saying that. So he's right about that. He's also probably not wrong if he thinks there was probably an element of fandom that were hoping it would fail and weren't going to like it no matter what. He's probably not wrong about that either. That is probably true. However, what I would say to David Harbour is this. Heath Ledger's casting as Joker would like to speak to you. You think fans wanted that when they announced it? With all the Brokeback Mountain boy? They didn't want that either. And they were against it, and they were... As a matter of fact, let's go more recent. Venom would like to have a word with you. You want to talk about movies where everybody's, you can't make that movie. Venom without Spider-Man, that can't be done. You think that movie didn't have that? But guess what? Not everybody, but a lot of fans are willing to take their pre-existing biases, pre-existing expectations, and put them at the door. And listen, a lot of movie fans love the experience of coming out of a movie theater and going, you know what? I thought that was going to suck and I liked it. We love that as movie fans. There's very few as satisfying experiences to me as a movie fan than going into a movie that I think is going to be rock bottom garbage and coming out going, you know what? That was all right. You know, we as film fans love that sort of thing. And I think Venom proved that if you had delivered an entertaining and engaging and decent movie, film fans, for the most part, would have been willing to come out and going, hey, I thought this looked like it was going to suck, but it was all right. The problem was that the movie didn't deliver that. Now, that's a subjective opinion, of course, but a lot of us film fans just felt like the movie didn't work. So while I think, Rob, that Harbour is right in saying, you know, a lot of the fans didn't want this to work in the first place, you know, he's not wrong about that, but there are a lot of other examples of movies that face the same stuff and were able to make it work. So I just felt like this was a little bit of a tone-deaf comment to make, and at this point, he should probably just move on from it. I don't know, Rob. You heard what he had to say. Does it ring true for you? Does it not? What do you assess here?
Well, you know, as was reported, the director, Neil Marshall, who I really, really like, I know him a little bit, and the producer were at odds on this film. There was a lot, it was reported in the trades, there was a lot of acrimony on the set of this movie between the producer and the director, and I don't think, I think that has a lot to do with what went wrong. Different visions, competing visions. I don't think Neil Marshall was allowed to do what he wanted to do with this film. And, you know, when you start blaming fans, the one thing about fans is they might be vocal before a movie comes out. But when a movie's on its way out, there's nobody who's more loyal. All fans turn out. You might have been bitching, but if you're a Hellboy fan, you're going to go see this movie. And I think ultimately the problem with this film is it ultimately was a disappointment from every standpoint. And I think it really stemmed from the acrimony between the producer and the director. The director, he was undermined. And Neil Marshall, who is actually, I think, if you've seen Dog Soldiers or, you know, you've seen any of his movies, he's a perfect director for, I mean, The Descent is one of the greatest horror movies of the last 20 years.
It is my second favorite horror film of all time.
I mean, Neil Marshall, terrific director. You don't undercut a creative like Neil Marshall. You let him do what you hired him to do. And I think that was where the film sort of fell down, is it wasn't allowed to be a fully realized vision because of the acrimony between the producer and the director. And everybody wants to blame the fans. And what people don't realize is they'll bitch and moan and complain all the time, but when they see something, they're the first line of cheerleaders for these movies, and they won't bitch and moan and complain unless the movie lets them down. If it doesn't let them down, you're going to have an army of people out there singing the film's praises to high heaven. So to blame the fans after the fact, I think it's never a good thing.
I mean, because here's essentially what it's saying, Rob. You complain about the movie before we went to go see it. This is hypothetical, by the way. So you complain about the movie before we go see it. You're one of these people like, oh, man, listen, there's no point making this movie. If it's not Ron Perlman, I don't even want to go see it. And I hear you say, all right. Do you think I'm going to come out of the movie and go, wow, I didn't like that movie because Rob complained before I saw the movie about something? No, I'm going to go in and I'm going to come out either going to like the movie or I don't. People aren't coming out of theaters going, well, I didn't like that because somebody on the internet said they didn't like it. It's not the way it works. A lot of people like to pretend that's the way it works. But anyway, guys, question here is, what do you think about that whole situation with that? Do you think, look, I think there are some true things in what David Harbour is saying. I agree, but I just don't agree with his conclusions. But maybe you guys are thinking of some things that I'm not taking into consideration here. What do you guys think about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our fourth and final off the top topic, which is this. You know, Rob, a little bit earlier, we were talking about some things that give us, seem like there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel sort of thing. This, to me, is a story like that. Now, while there are a lot of movies that have just completely shut down operations right now, we know of a couple that are kind of still in motion behind the scenes without actually having their cameras rolling, but still doing some work. We know Tom Cruise is still working with people to get things ready for Mission Impossible 7. He was doing some stunt tests and stuff like that a little while ago. Well, one of the movies that they're still moving on and they're still doing things for and doing preparation work for is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Now, according to a report in Variety, which is also going to be the basis for a Furiosa story we're going to talk about a little bit further in the show, but according to this one article in Variety that was talking about productions that are still doing work, according to the story in Variety, they are doing all their pre-production on Doctor Strange still continues, and they are still aiming to start shooting the movie in June. So apparently Sam Raimi and a lot of his people are working remotely and doing things, via Skype and probably whatever, and doing things in small isolated groups, but they continue the work on that while a lot of other movies have shut down. Rob, when you look at somebody like Sam Raimi and this Doctor Strange movie, clearly they believe that they're going to be able to be, right or wrong, they right now seem to be operating under the assumption that come June, they're going to be able to be up and running and shooting. Does it make sense then, if you can continue your pre-production work at this point on your film remotely without needing to get 6 or 7 people together, and you can get a lot of this work done on an isolated basis? Does it make sense for them to keep moving on that, or would it just be better just to shut it all down like a lot of other films have?
No, I mean, I think that if you can work remotely in pre-production, why not do it? That's one of the great things about technology. And look, I'm a firm believer in as much pre-planning as you can do on a film, you should do that pre-planning. And that's what we've got. Skype, we've got Zoom, we've got all different kinds of things. And if department heads can be isolated but still working, they did that a lot on Lord of the Rings, John. They were pioneering teleconferencing. And I mean, Peter Jackson was working when he was scoring the movies in London. He was still working with his VFX department. And they would have Skype calls and conference calls, video conference calls 20 years ago. And I think that that's what technology is for. So why not? Absolutely. I think it could only make the movie better.
I mean, look, and it keeps things rolling, because we were talking the other day, Rob, about the fact that it's not just the movies like Quiet Place 2 that are supposed to be coming out in theaters right now. It's also the films that are coming out well down the road that are going to get affected by this, because their work is being bumped right now. And so it's kind of a nice thing to see that, Marvel's at least trying to do this. Whether or not they're able to actually have cameras rolling in June, we're going to have to wait and see. But it's nice to see that they're still working on it. Question here is, guys, what do you think about it? Do you think Doctor Strange 2 is going to be able to get in front of cameras and start rolling as planned in June? What do you think about the fact that they're still doing pre-production work on all this? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know what you think. All right. With all that down and out of the way, let's move on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with our main topics by simply going anytime, 24/7, over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's absolutely free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Maximo Becca, who writes, "Hey, John and crew, greetings and salutations from Argentina." Well, greetings, Maximo. Thank you for writing in. "I've been a huge fan since the Man of Steel review. So many people say they found us through the Man of Steel review. It's great. And from that day forward, you became a daily addiction. Thank you so much, man. I wanted to know if you heard the report of Anya Taylor-Joy in talks to play a young Furiosa in the next Mad Max film. First, what are your thoughts? Second, when was a new Mad Max announced? I thought it was trapped in development hell. Thanks, and bring on the filthy." All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, Maximo. And yes, we were talking a little bit about that Variety report. Well, one of the stories in Variety was about New Mutants' own Anya Taylor-Joy had been discussing appearing in a Furiosa movie. Now, a Furiosa movie is something they've been talking about ever since Mad Max Fury Road. But then the director, George Miller, got into a massive legal battle with the studio over Mad Max. It looked like the two would never work again, but apparently business is business. All the other problems are kept separate from that, and they still want to move forward. So listen, as of right now, it should be clear, a Furiosa movie has not been announced. Just because they're trying to get one put together does not automatically mean it's going to happen. I mean, George Miller's Justice League, anybody? They were 2 weeks away from shooting that movie. I believe it was like 2 weeks away from shooting that movie, and that whole thing got shut down. So what has happened is there's been a bunch of reports going around that Anya Taylor-Joy is in discussions to play a young Furiosa. Let's be clear about that, though. Here's the report out of Variety, okay? This is the report out of Variety. This is the whole thing. This is the extent of everything in that whole article about all the other productions. This is the full extent of what was revealed. Most executives don't expect things to get back to normal for several weeks, though a few are taking video and phone meetings as they try to game out films they hope to greenlight in the next 12 months. Director George Miller, for instance, has been meeting with names including Anya Taylor-Joy for his Furiosa spinoff, which he hopes to start shooting in 2021. Of course, Miller is making concessions to coronavirus. Those auditions have been taking place via Skype. I want for us to be very clear about this because this is important to understand. This is all the reports you're seeing about this, it all comes from that one paragraph. All the headlines, all the reports from that one paragraph. And what I want to point out is that while nothing in that paragraph say Anya Taylor-Joy wouldn't be playing a young Furiosa, I think it's important to point out there's nothing in that paragraph that says that is what she's reading for, nor that if they do this movie, that it would be about a young Furiosa and wouldn't involve Charlize Theron. Now, there's a lot of assumptions being made, Rob, but I mean, and they may turn out to be true. Those assumptions might turn out to be true. But I think it's just important to be very, very clear here. All the headlines and all the people you're saying she's playing this, it all comes from this one Variety article, and the Variety article said nothing about her being a young Furiosa, just that she's taking auditions for a part in the movie. Maybe it's Furiosa, maybe it's not. I have been dying to see her in New Mutants. I mean, we've been dying to see New Mutants for a lot of different reasons, but her is one of the specific reasons. I've really been curious to see her in it. I cannot help but wonder if George Miller's had a little glimpse of what's going on in New Mutants. I mean, it's been floating around for so long. I'm sure some studio people have done some private showings to some of their friends. I mean, I don't know. But she's a talented girl. Whatever they're looking to get her in is great. I still don't know that this movie's even going to happen. But number one, I hope it happens. And number two, whether she's a young Furiosa or even if it's about a young Furiosa or not, I'd really like to see what she could do in a movie like this. And again, Rob, it's like the Doctor Strange thing. I'm excited to see the work still moving forward. So that's exciting to me. Rob, you hear about this. A lot of questions. Is this movie even going to happen? Could it be about a young Furiosa? If it's not, what about Anya Taylor? I mean, your overall scope of this, what are you thinking about it?
Well, first of all, dude, I love Fury Road. I mean, I grew up with the Mad Max movies. I loved Fury Road. It was so much better than I thought it could be. The rewatchability of that movie is amazing. And the Furiosa character's great. And Anya Taylor-Joy is one of, I think, the most exciting young actresses working in film today. I think she can really do no wrong. And I love the idea of her playing. I think that's actually pretty good casting, playing a young Charlize Theron. I think that's great. And whatever George Miller would come up with, I would love to see that. But like you said, he's doing auditions. That doesn't really mean anything. That doesn't even mean she would be playing a young Furiosa. Although that's probably a good bet what she is playing if she's going to play it. But I can't wait, John. Bring this on. I'd love to see George Miller. You know, it took him almost 2 decades to make Fury Road, and he's stuck with it. And we're all better for it. So I hope this movie happens. And boy, do I want to see her as Ilyana Rasputin in New Mutants. I want to see her wielding that soul sword. You know, in that TV spot they released that showed her wielding the soul sword, I'm like, oh my God, I've wanted to see that my whole life. I want to see the New Mutants so bad.
What do you think George is going to do with this, though? I'll be honest with you. I'll see anything George Miller wants to do with the Mad Max world. Anything, I'm in. Okay, so just plain. But wouldn't, all things being equal, and if we had our choice, wouldn't I rather see a current set Furiosa with Charlize Theron back in the role rather than a prequel with another? I mean, if that's the way they're going, that's great. I'm all for that too. But wouldn't it be better to have a Charlize Theron? Which one are you hoping for?
Well, I think I was, if there's a young Furiosa, I think they might Godfather to it. Yeah. Where you're gonna jump back and forth in time, because I would really like to see that. I mean, you've got, how did Furiosa lose her arm? How did she wind up running a truck for a Morton Joe and that whole bunch? You know, that wacky fun bunch that's shiny and chrome, John. Shiny and chrome. I don't know. Like, how did she wind up there? And it'd be really interesting to get some of her backstory. And as long as I think doing a 3-hour Furiosa movie where you're jumping back and forth through time could be pretty dope.
All right, guys, the question here is, what do you think about this story? Would you like to see a young Furiosa? Would you like to see a Charlize Theron Furiosa? Would you like to see jump back and forth? Do you think this movie's even going to happen? And what do you think about Anya Taylor-Joy just being in it at all? A lot of stuff there to comment on. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's jump into main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Aaron Miller, who writes, "Hey, John, I'm a big Harry Potter fan, and even though they haven't been as good as the main movies, I have enjoyed the Fantastic Beasts films for what they are. Did you see the comments from Dan Fogler saying that the next movie has a huge war scene? This is something I've really been waiting for in the Potter universe. How big and grand do you think it could end up being? Could it top the Portals battle in Endgame? Thanks." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, listen, one of the things you must never underestimate is both the size and the passion of Harry Potter fans. You must never underestimate that. And if you ever need even the slightest reminder, just go to a Universal's park. Because whenever I go to like we got Universal Studios Hollywood 10 minutes up the street, 15 minutes up the street from us. So Ann and I, when it's open, we have annual passes, we go there. It is always filled with people in their damn robes. Their damn, what's the name of the school again? Hogwarts? Hogwarts robes. From the littlest of children to the biggest of adults, walking around in those damn robes. Never, ever underestimate the size and passion of that fan group. It's immense. Also, when you're talking about something like wizards and warlocks and things for that does kind of lend itself to the idea of seeing some big, grand, epic, magical battles, which, by the way, we haven't seen a lot of in movies in all of movie history. I mean, we've seen a lot of military battles. We've seen a lot of superhero battles. But like grand wizards, witches, and warlock battles, that's not something we've seen a lot of. And maybe we're going to be getting that in the new Fantastic Beasts, according to Dan Fogler, because he said the following. "I can say I read the script getting ready for the third Fantastic Beasts film. I read the script and the character development is really lovely and it's very similar to the feel of the first movie, which I think is great. It's leading towards this massive war with the backdrop of World War II. So you can just imagine epic battle scenes are coming." Rob, I could see that there would be some people who would hear that and think, well, wait a minute. Big epic war scenes is not what Harry Potter is about. You know, big epic war scenes. And I can already hear people saying that. My response to that would be, since when is every movie supposed to be just like the last one that came before it? And you want to, as you're progressing in new stories, to kind of broaden the world. And they've done that by going back to a different period of time and all that kind of stuff. And I just think, listen, in the world Harry Potter is set up, to me, it would only make sense with all these forces of good and evil and all this mythology goes back. To me, it is consistent with the Harry Potter universe to say at some point there were massive confrontations between the forces of good and evil. It just seems to make sense. I think that fits in that world. And the longer you go without it, it kind of feels odd that you don't have it. So I think this sounds exciting. Now, is this them just trying to capture a little bit on the big action spectacle of it all, like a lot of other movies? Probably, but I also think it fits in narratively. So I'm not a Potterhead, but mark me down as somebody who's looking forward to it. Rob, you hear about this. What do you think? Dude,
can you imagine, like, let's say some huge conflagration happens between wizards and warlocks during the London Blitz. So, you know, you've got Nazi planes dropping bombs on London, and at the same time, this massive, when people are cowering, fearing for their lives, who knows the difference between a Nazi bomb and an explosion of arcane energy somewhere? I mean, I would love to see columns of armor in the midst of wizard battles. I mean, come on. World War II mixed with, who knows what's going to happen? But if they say the background of World War II, I can't even imagine. Like, what happens if they're invading Normandy and there's just giant wizard battle going on, you know, and no one knows? Like, you have the Allied troops going, what the hell's going on over there? I don't know, man, but people are fighting. I mean, it would be so cool. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I'm in. Count me in. Now, World War II and wizards? Come on, man.
I love the way you just painted that picture, by the way. Like, imagine wizarding battles going on as World War II is happening right behind them in the midst.
That's the way you could actually have this stuff spilling out into the real world, because who's going to know what bombs are dropping? You know, I mean, you've got the Sinister, and you're going, what the hell are those dudes or chicks or whatever, monsters, whatever it is. They're playing Quidditch, but with real weapons and bombs. And I mean, to me, the whole idea of it during World War II just puts a big smile on my imagination, John. Bring it on.
All right, now the person asking the question, understandably, because right now kind of the standard for us at the moment is the notion of the Portals battle. That's kind of become, that or the Wakandan battle in Infinity War is so bloody good. But right now everybody thinks Portals battle. Is it getting a little ambitious for some fans, like the person who sent in the message to ask, can it top the Portals battle, or could something like this actually have the potential to do something like that?
Well, I mean, you know, the Portals battle is having all those superheroes in one place was pretty amazing. But I mean, what if it is conceivable that somebody who is a graduate of Hogwarts was fighting with the Allied forces, leading the troops, so to speak.
This is true.
And it has to muster up some, I mean, you got Winston Churchill giving his speeches, and then why wouldn't the British end somehow, why couldn't they muster magical forces and bring them on their side? And what if you had some amazing battle like that? I don't know if it's going to be the size of the Portals, because it's just a different thing. But man, if you could have columns of armor and planes in the middle of flying wizards and arcane energy, and you see it all. I mean, can you imagine aerial combat, but instead of just planes, like Stuka's going after Spitfires, you've got flying wizards, you know, casting spells. It could be epic.
I have never been more excited for a Harry Potter movie than you just made me.
I mean,
I've never been more excited for a Harry Potter universe movie than what you just made me. I'm actually getting, damn, that would be actually really cool.
Wouldn't it be rad? I mean, can you imagine Dunkirk? But that aerial battle in Dunkirk, but with wizards? I mean, I know in Dunkirk it was Tom Hardy and a couple other dudes in planes, but imagine like 150 planes and wizards.
That would be,
come on,
intense, guys. Question is, look, and I don't know. For all I know, maybe some hardcore Harry Potter purists are thinking that's not Harry Potter, and maybe there is some of that, and maybe there's room for that. But I know, guys, you hear about this. Does it pique your interest for a third one? I know I kind of like these Fantastic Beasts movie, even though I'm not a hardcore Potterhead or anything. But what are you thinking about this? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Amir, who writes, I know you are beyond sick of hearing and talking about the Snyder Cut and everything associated with it, but what would you think of Warner Brothers just releasing it as is? I know it's not actually complete, since so many people are trapped at home during this virus mess. Would it kill them to give a little joy to some people? What do you think? What harm can it do? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Amir. And oh my God, here we are again. Talking about the Snyder Cut yet again. All right, to sum up, here's something that everybody's got to. What I have said about the Snyder Cut forever. Everybody knows. Everybody say it along with me. I know there are apples in the bag. I'm saying there's not watermelons in the bag. I know you've all heard me say it a billion times. I know. But for those who don't know what it means, is basically this. We all know that Zack Snyder has some kind of cut of the movie. What most people understand and know is that it's not an actually ready to be released theatrical kind of thing. It's not complete. I mean, yeah, you can go over to his house, sit down, as Jason Momoa has, by the way. You can go over to his house and he can show you something, and he can play his cut of the movie for you, but it's not a theatrically ready to go movie. And even Snyder himself has acknowledged this by recently saying, well, I mean, what is finished? I mean, all the creative choices are done. That's him word for word. That's what he said word for word. So yes, there are apples in the bag. Yes, there is a version of the movie that he has. You can go watch at his house, but there's not watermelons in the bag. There's not a theatrically ready to go. Okay, we clear on that? Great. That's what all the studio stuff has said. That's what all the major trades have reported. That's what everybody with common sense understands. That said, a few weeks ago, Rob, maybe a couple of months ago now, we should say this. As HBO was coming up, somebody made the comment that, hey, for HBO Max, why not just put it out on HBO Max? And I actually said this, if you remember this, I said, you know what? Screw it. It's not complete, fine. Don't spend another dollar on it. Don't put another $10 million or $30 million into it to actually make it complete. Don't do that. But for an HBO Max, it might not be a bad idea just to drop it on HBO Max because it's free at this point. You've already spent the money on it. It could be a nice little add-on feature to get some people interested in HBO Max. Hell, okay, why not? Why not do it? In the midst of all that, though, there have been some, let's say, restaurants, getting involved in this. Like Wendy's just recently responded to a tweet with the hashtag release the Snyder Cut, right? Even it keeps going on. And you know what? I'm going to shock some people by saying this, but I'm going to say it. I think Amir is right, writing in the email. Listen, one of the big arguments against ever releasing whatever version and whatever degree of completion version of the Snyder Cut has been there is that it will just undermine Warner Brothers and the current DCEU. What you don't want to do, if you're Warner Brothers, is just continue on the debate about the Justice League movie that is versus the Justice League movie that might have been, and cause all this. And I agree, that is a legitimate thing for Warner Brothers to go, no, screw that, we're never releasing it. But it's been 2.5 years, Rob. Not only has it been 2.5 years since that Justice League movie came out, here's the more important thing. The DCEU has clearly started going in a completely different direction. The DCEU today is very different from the DCEU that they were trying at the time to kind of put together when Justice League came out. So I would say that the sheer fact that it's been 2.5 years, combined with the fact that the DCEU is a very different thing now than it was before, I would say that those dangers about creating more spatting and arguing about is the existing Justice League better, or is it, that gets mitigated, I think, by the fact that so much time has passed and the DCU has a new head honcho in town in Walter Hamada, that they're clearly taking the universe in a different direction and going in a different way. I think that mitigates all those other things. And I would say this, while I'm not all that interested in the Snyder Cut, there are clearly a very, maybe small, but vocal and passionate group of fans who, even though they're even understanding now there's no completed version of it, they just want to see it. For their own curiosity, for their own entertainment, for their own amusement, they just want to see it. And I think Amir has a point. In extraordinary circumstances like this, everybody's sequestered at home. Everybody is going through, for different people to differing degrees, going through some rough stuff right now with all this kind of thing. Would it kill Warner Brothers at this point to go, you know what? Let's just generate some excitement. It's 2.5-year-old movie. We're going in a different direction. It's cool. What's the harm right now then of Warner Brothers going, let's cause some excitement and some buzz and some joy, whether people love it or hate it or whatever. Let's just put this thing out so people can watch it. It doesn't mean anything. It's totally meaningless. So what's the harm? So Rob, I may not be taking everything into consideration here, but I actually think that Amir might have a point. At this point, what's the harm in in releasing it? What's the harm? Put it out. Why not throw it on HBO? Let people have some fun and excitement right now. It won't do any harm, I don't think, but I don't know, Rob, am I taking into consideration? What do you think about this?
Dude, I'm with you. I mean, 3 episodes of Game of Thrones is $30 million. The 10-episode seasons up until the last 2 seasons. Why not throw $30 million? Because I think I read recently it was $20 or $30 million they said that they needed to spend. And at this point, with the amount of money people are throwing at these streaming shows, here you're going to get a movie, by all accounts, it's like 3 hours long anyway. So I want to see that. Justice League to me was one of the great disappointments of my life, to be honest. And if there is, if it feels totally like it belongs with Man of Steel and it belongs with Batman v Superman and it belongs in that, I think it'd be great to do it, frankly, because who wouldn't? If it exists, I want to see it because obviously in the trailers for Justice League, we saw how much was not in the movie. Whole backstories about Cyclops or Colossus, Cyclops, Cyborg. That I would like to see. There's more of the Flash, more character stuff. Heck, Quentin Tarantino did a new cut of The Hateful Eight for Netflix.
Yes, he did.
So why not?
Didn't make it any better, but yes, he did.
Right? Why not just do something like that? I think it would be really interesting, and it if it exists, put it out. It's programming that's just lying there, and HBO Max it would be marketing for them.
And you don't even have to spend the $20 million.
Right? If you don't want
take it as it is.
But why not finish it?
Well, look, because then you're talking to Warner Brothers saying, okay, listen, there's a coronavirus going on, and we're like all struggling with money. We're just going to no. I don't even think you have to finish it. Just take what Zack Snyder showed Jason Momoa. Spend not a single. We were talking a little bit earlier about. Why not release the first 9 minutes of Bloodshot? Why not put out these? Why not do things that are free? There's no downside. There's no doubt. If you don't spend $1, there's no downside. Just take what Zack Snyder's got in whatever form it is. Don't spend another $1 on it to complete it, and just release it and let the fans see it at this point. What's the harm? What's the harm?
I just think that Zack Snyder wouldn't want to do that. If you're close, it'd be better if they finished it.
Okay, no, I don't disagree with that because there's some people saying he's saying he needs another $15 or $20 million to finish it, and maybe Zack Snyder wouldn't want it released to the public without him being able to actually polish it off. Fine, but I still think in theory and in principle, we're way far away from when Justice League came out. It's all behind us now. There's still a vocal, passionate group of fans who would love to see it. And we're all under these extraordinary circumstances of being bogged down. And maybe it would be a nice little gesture just to say, hey, fans, we weren't going to release this. We've got our reasons, but we all could use a pick-me-up right now.
Right.
We could all use a pick-me-up right now. Let's have some with a little bit of excitement. Here you go. It won't cost them a penny. But Rob, let me ask you that because I am often guilty of letting my enthusiasm get the best of me and sometimes overlooking some obvious pitfalls. You just brought up a very legitimate one. What if Zack Snyder himself doesn't want it released in the current states? And that's one. But if they didn't spend another $1 on it, can you think of any other drawbacks maybe or things that would be major hurdles for Warner Brothers just saying at this point, just release it and let some people have some fun? What do you think?
Well, it could be contractual.
That's a big one too.
When Joss Whedon came on board, maybe his contract says if I'm coming on board, you're not going to release a different version of this movie. And you'd have to have other people sign off. I'm sure the actors, their management, it would be really interesting because if they release this version, does this count as another movie? Because the actors, they all get paid. You get residuals. There's a lot of contractual obligations. Do the writers get paid again? Does Joss Whedon get paid because his name wouldn't appear on this version? I think there's a lot of business reasons and red tape that could prevent this from getting released. And it gets to the point where it's not even just about finishing the movie. It's like, are you going to pay the lawyers to follow up with all these people and make sure they don't get sued? Because it's unfortunately there's guild rules, Writers Guild, SAG, DGA. I mean, there are rules that have to be followed. The studio is a signatory to all of these guilds, so you have to abide by their rules. And I would say that there are many contractual, let's call them hurdles that you probably have to jump to make something like this happen. That's
a good point. So here the question is, guys, Rob raised some great points. To me, all other things, if the hurdles could be easily circumvented, and if that isn't an issue, and they probably are, but if it's not, I don't see any reason, only because of the extraordinary circumstances we're in right now. I don't see there being any reason. I think it would be a really nice act of good faith on the part of Warner Brothers, who have moved on with their DCU into another direction anyway. just release it as it is and let people have some fun in these very difficult times. But I don't know, Rob raises some really good things that could get in the way of that. I wanted to know what you guys thought of that. So I made that the topic of today's question of the day. And the question of the day that I wanted to put to you guys was simply this. Even unfinished, considering the quarantine and people needing a pick-me-up right now, would it be a good idea for Warner Brothers just to release the Snyder Cut on HBO for fun? Then this, Doctor Strange, keep blah, blah, blah. And I put this up just before we started the show. A little over 1,600 of you guys have responded so far, and it's close, as expected. I put the two options are yes, release it unfinished, or no, what the fuck, this again? I know, believe me, I know. But as of right now, 53% of you are saying, yeah, listen, things suck right now. Why not put a little injection of joy into the world? Which is, by the way, my pickup line. No, that's terrible. And right
what?
Now, 47%.
What?
I didn't think that one through properly enough. That just came across way worse than I intended it to. Anyway, or 47% of you guys are still saying no. Just forget this thing. The DCU moved on. Let's move on with it. So anyway, that's that. Question here is, guys, what do you think? Do you think, given the current circumstance, they should just release it? Or are you thinking, you know what, there, like Rob's pointing out, there are mountains of red tape and nightmares that they would have to go through just to do that, and it's not worth it? So maybe that's your point of view. Jump down in the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our fourth and final main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Greg Rosler, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob. I read that the theater chains are considering offering free admission to get people back into the theaters once the crisis is behind us and they're open back up for business. What would be the pros and cons of such a move? Thanks, man." All right. Thanks a lot for saying that in. And as a matter of fact, I addressed this briefly on an open mic that I did yesterday where we talked a little bit about this. So basically where this is coming from is this. NATO, the North American Theater Owners Association, that's all the movie theaters and their representation. A rep from NATO actually came out and said that, yeah, they would consider doing something like, once the theater's open, doing free screenings. Here specifically was the comment from Patrick Corcoran from NATO, said, "We will see. It's going to depend. We're both local and national markets, and our main distribution partners are very interested in national releases as opposed to local ones. So depending on how this virus goes and whether it's more severe in some places and it lifts sooner or later, that's all going to go into it. We're looking for ways to reach out to our patrons and also to our studio partners about the best ways to message and roll things out once we're back up and running." So, Rob, my thoughts on this yesterday, I gave just some quick initial thoughts. My initial thoughts on this were, oh, hell yes, do some free screenings. Not just because I'm a movie fan, and of course we all want everything for free. Give us everything for free. But to me, it seems like it would make good business sense as well. You're getting things up and running. You probably are going to have to do what the Chinese theaters did, which was bring in some rerun movies to get things up and running again, because they're not probably going to have stuff ready to go the first week they're open again. So it's a way to get people back into the habit of going to the movie theaters, getting excited about coming to the movie theaters again. And by the way, the movie theaters, Rob, they don't really make any of their money from movie ticket sales anyway. They make their money from the concession stands. So it'll be good for them, and it would be good for the studios that even while they're not making any money on these rerun movies, it's a great way for them to support the theater, saying, yeah, take Avengers Endgame and put it back in theater free of charge. You go for it. And that will pay off for them later, because the more and the quicker people get back into the habit of going to the movie theaters, the sooner that the studios are going to start making money. So to me, it seems like a no-duh. It seems like a no-duh. Yeah, do it. Make it free for the first week or two. Because there are going to be people. Rob, we put up the poll last week asking people, when theaters open, are you going to be ready to jump right back in? About 50% said sure, but there were a lot of people that said, you know what, I'm still going to be really apprehensive about getting back out there. So anything you can do, I think, to get people comfortable and wanting to go back to the theaters again, I think is great. Now, Rob, you've become the master of coming up with the shortcomings of the ideas that I overlook, but you're looking at this situation What do you think about that as potential move? Or can you think of maybe other better ways to approach reopening the theaters?
Well, you look, putting older movies in theaters and offering free admission could be fun. I just don't know how many people would turn out for that. Certainly for the movie theaters, it's great because, like you pointed out, they make most of their money through concessions anyway. And I think it would be a great show of solidarity for people to come out. And people, when the world reopens, I think everybody is going to be eager to support their favorite businesses again, their favorite restaurants, their favorite stores. People are going to want to get out and patronize these places. So in that sense, it would be good. But I think it's going to be a hard sell. It's going to take a while for people to just jump right back in and going into sitting in a room with a bunch of strangers that they don't know where they've been, and it's going to be a process. So I don't know if movie theaters. I don't know if I could point out that it's a bad idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. I just don't know if it's enough. I think that what we really need to do is get people used to the idea that we're safe more than movies are great. And I think that it's got to be a combination or something. I don't know if that it's the right move. It's certainly a great move for the movie theaters themselves. For the studios, unlike Universal that now has a big problem with the National Association of Theater Owners, it's a real vote of confidence, and it's a way to build trust between the studios and movie theaters again after they've been releasing their films on VOD and announcing the Trolls World Tour was going to go out on VOD even though it was already booked into theaters. So I think from that perspective, it's a good idea. I just don't know how well it will work.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be the thing. And so because of that difficulty, though, of getting people back regardless, that's why I think making it free may help a little bit, because it's going to be a bit of a struggle. I think you're right about that. I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. Guys, question is, look, obviously, aside from the fact that we all want things free, aside from that, do you think it would make good business sense to do something like that? What do you see some of the pros and cons of something like that? Go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comments section below. All right, guys. With all that down and out of the way, Rob and I are going to go into your live questions in just a little bit. But before we do, with so many of us quarantining at home and limiting our social distancing and all that kind of stuff, a lot of us are stuck sitting around doing nothing. And a lot of people are taking advantage of this time, making some lemonade out of lemons, as I always say, to get caught up on some classic films. And we've been giving you recommendations every day to do just that. So I decided to reach out to a friend of mine to give you some different recommendations, because you've been getting mine and Rob's, and you'll get more of mine and Rob's. But I reached out to my friend Mark Ellis to ask him to share with us some of his recommendations for these times that we're in. Here's Mark. Mark, as you know yourself, being kind of sequestered away where you are right now. Everybody's kind of stuck at home right now, which has given us the opportunity to make some lemonade out of lemons and maybe get caught up on some great classic films we've never seen, or maybe some of the nice ones that just kind of flew under the radar the last couple of years. So we've been recommending films to everybody to watch at home lately. What are some gems that you would recommend to people to check out while they're at home?
Okay, well, John, if all your viewers can get out of the Ozark Mountains for a little bit and just take a break from all of that craziness, and if you already have seen the YouTube special Dog Stepfather, don't worry, I have options for you. So I wanted to come up with a couple movies that were going to be empathetic to everybody's situation, but weren't going to make you feel claustrophobic. So, everybody started watching Contagion and Outbreak when this thing began, and it's like, okay, I get you want to understand this, but let's have some fun with this. So I have two movies that are primarily based in one setting, but they're a lot of fun. So my first one is an all-time classic, and it's currently streaming on Amazon for free, Clue.
So what is it about Clue that, so many people talk about Clue? Why is this one that stands out for you?
It is just so funny, and the comedy holds up. It's hard to do. If you go back and watch a lot of comedies from the 80s, only the great ones still work. Your Ghostbusters still works. Your Revenge of the Nerds still works okay, but I think Clue holds up as well as any of them because the cast is dynamite. You get Christopher Lloyd in his prime, Tim Curry in his apex, Leslie Ann Warren. The list goes on and on and on, and it's a fun mystery. It's really fun to see what's going to happen next, and look, it's also going to inspire a lot of people to play the board game. So really, I just gave you a good movie to watch, but I also killed 6 hours for you because you're going to be playing Clue immediately after watching the movie.
I kid you not, my wife literally has about 12 different versions of Clue, from Game of Thrones Clue, The Office Clue, The Golden Girls Clue, on and on and on. And, you know, they're supposed to be doing a remake. They say Ryan Reynolds with his Deadpool writers are supposed to be working on a remake. So it's something that has really stuck around in everybody's pop cultural consciousness. It's an interesting phenomena. You don't see that happen a lot these days.
You know, if you were to do an all-time, which story keeps creeping up on Movie Talk, it would either be, is Ryan Reynolds actually going to do Clue, or it would be, is The Crow actually going to get rebooted? It'd be one of the two.
Yeah, that and the 15th release date just announced for New Mutants. All right, so that's the one. It's Clue. That's a great one. What would be your second little nugget for people to watch while they're bunkered down?
Okay, well, look, you know I'm not a one-genre pony. I like to go to all sections in Blockbuster, and so my next one, again, primarily one setting inside a house where you're sequestered with a demon named Toby. I chose Paranormal Activity 3, which is currently streaming on Netflix. And John, here's the reason why I did Paranormal Activity 3, because as we've all had more time to do time wasters or go down rabbit holes online, I'm looking for ghost stuff, okay? And I think that maybe ghosts exist, but on YouTube, wouldn't you think you would see some evidence of a ghost pop up on YouTube yet? Still haven't seen it. So what I want everybody out there to do, go watch Paranormal Activity 3, see how they were able to rig a camera on either an oscillating fan or in different places, and everybody out there, do the same thing, tape your place overnight, and let's find some ghosts here.
You know, what's the interesting thing is that series kind of came a little bit of a masterclass, if you will, on really low budget creative filmmaking in and of itself. What made 3 the one that stood out to you to want to recommend out of that franchise?
I think that it was the cool tricks that they could do, because by the time 3 rolled around, we had seen a lot of found footage. We'd seen a lot of those kind of things. And so you really had to up the ante. And I just found it so inventive, the camera placement, the way that they would cheat a shot, the way that they would show you something and you feel safe, and then all of a sudden you don't feel safe anymore. And this was kind of like the end of The Conjuring, where they just throw every scary thing at you. The kitchen sink is being hurled at this poor family, and they also have to root for the San Diego Chargers in the late 80s, which was not a pleasant place.
Not an easy thing to be. Hey, listen, Mark, thank you so much for sharing your recommendations with everybody. But listen, you are still keeping busy. Where can people find you and all the stuff that you're doing online right now if they want to follow you?
You can find me everywhere on social media at Mark Ellis Live, and I do have my new special, Dog Stepfather, is for free on YouTube as well. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. And other than that, you can probably follow me walking Molly the Wonder Dog. We've been taking like 2-hour walks every day just to get out of the house for a little bit. So it's been good. We're doing okay. I certainly can't complain. I know a lot of other people out there are struggling to make ends meet. And just to let everybody know that we're all here for you, if nothing else, then to at least give you a little bit of entertainment.
Well, you've done that. Thanks so much for that, Mark. We really appreciate it. And take care of yourself, man.
See you soon, bud.
All right, that is our friend Mark Ellis. It's always good to talk to Mark and get his recommendations as well. Make sure you go and see his comedy special that's online right now, and go get caught up on that. Rob, I know you enjoyed working with Mark Ellis too, right? Like the dude, have you? And like you've seen some of his comedy before too. He's legitimately an amazing comedian.
He really is, and I can't recommend Dog Stepfather enough. I think I've watched it 3 times.
Yeah.
And it's free, it's on YouTube, there's no excuse. He's truly one of the nicest guys, I've met. And basically you and John Schnepp brought me into the whole Collider family, and I became a part of the Schmodown. And Mark Ellis is just one of those guys that you can't help but immediately fall in love with, purely platonically.
Yeah, great guy.
But he's a great guy.
And I love his recommendations. All right. With that stuff down now, guys, let's get into your live questions. And we're going to start things off here in our live segment with, where are we at here? With Willow, who writes, Cinderella Man, which is a movie I recommended the other day, is indeed based on a true story, but like most movies, it took some liberties. Notably, Max Baer, the main opponent, was depicted as a brutal and remorseless, where he was actually a good person in real life. Still a great film, though. Yeah. Listen, all biopics, everything, they take, unless it's a documentary, they do take liberties. The one thing I question, though, is when you're taking liberties to portray a real person who may have been a pretty good person, but portray them in a very dark way. So I don't know the background to that, but that is the one thing I would bring into question. But you know me, take liberties with movies. Your first responsibility is to make a good movie than it is to be true to the source material. But that's a little bit of good information there, Willow. I'm glad you brought that up. That was worth saying. All right, next up, Taki75 writes, Persepolis, 2007, animated film by Marjane Satrapi, I always mispronounce the name, about a girl growing up in Tehran during the years of the Iranian Revolution and the Iran-Iraq War. Hilarious, poignant, and a great history lesson. Fantastic voice acting by Chiara Mastroianni, who I'm sure I'm getting that wrong as well. And if I'm not mistaken, Rob, I believe that was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, was it not?
Yeah, it's terrific. I own that movie. It's terrific. And I can't say enough good things about it, so I agree.
Listen, in the era of the Pixar, what do you call it, dynasty, I guess you will, there has been some other great animated films, and that's one of them. Keep your eyes on that. So good recommendation, Taki. Well done. All right, next up, Henri Mertens writes, I recommend the movie A Mighty Wind, made by the same people who did Best in Show and Stonehenge. Stonehenge. What's the name of the band?
Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap. Why was I freezing on the name Spinal Tap?
Christopher Guest. You know.
A Mighty Wind. I love folk/country music. It pokes fun at the genre in a hilarious and lighthearted way. I also recommend season 7 of The Simpsons, especially the episode Mother Simpson, my favorite single season of any sitcom. You're going back to the glory days of The Simpsons. But yes, not just A Mighty Wind, Rob, but that collection of performers doing those movies together, because Spinal Tap is just all-time classic. Not enough people have seen Best in Show. Best in Show is absolutely hilarious, and A Mighty Wind was a very good follow-up to that as well. But have you seen A Mighty Wind?
Oh yeah, and waiting for Guffman, right?
Yep, another one as well.
Yeah,
so
but I mean, those are Christopher Guest directed movies, but he was just in Spinal Tap. Rob Reiner directed Spinal Tap.
Right. All right. Henri Martens also writes, and I'm watching my top 10 animated movies this week. Number 10, How to Train Your Dragon. Number 9, 101 Dalmatians. There's a classic. The live action one with Emma Stone should be coming out on Disney Plus here pretty soon. Chicken Run. Apparently they're doing a sequel to Chicken Run.
That's so good.
Number 7, Tarzan. Number 6, The Secret of Nim. I love The Secret of Nim. Nicodemus. Number 5, Aladdin. Number 4, Beauty and the Beast. Number 3, Spirited Away. Number 2, Toy Story. Number 1, The Iron Giant. Man, my number 1 isn't on that list. Lion King. Isn't even on his list. Oh, that hurts, Ari, but some great animated stuff on there. Spirited Away is fantastic, by the way. All right, James Ward writes, shout out to lastexittonowhere.com. They sell awesome t-shirts based on great films like Alien, Blade Runner, Shawshank, some Tarantino films, and a ton more. The prices are extremely reasonable as well. I highly recommend to everyone to check them out. That, of course, is from the vice president of lastexittonowhere.com, James Ward. Rob, I've never even heard of it.
Dude,
but I'm always good for good stuff like that.
Half my t-shirts are from Last Exit to Nowhere.
Really?
Yeah, they're my I was wearing one yesterday on my show, on your show too, the Wayland Yutani shirt. What Last Exit to Nowhere does is their shirts are all of like logos or things that appear in movies. So Wayland Yutani, Building Better Worlds, that was actually from Aliens. You see that logo. But they do, like, they have a Shawshank Prison shirt. I mean, their shirts are, and they're so clever, and really, the designs are great. I cannot recommend them highly enough. The problem is, they're kind of like Lay's potato chips. You know, Lay's potato chips, no one can eat just one. No one can buy just one Last Exit to Nowhere shirt. If you go to their website, and you want to buy, like, immediately you've bought like 10 shirts and you're out a couple $100. So I do not work for Last Exit to Nowhere. They have not paid me, John, but I love Last Exit to Nowhere. Love.
Well, I've never even heard of them. And so now I know where I got to go and look for some
They
shirts.
have the best geeky shirts of all.
All right, good to know. All right, next up comes to us from Rob Loves Picard Discovery. No question, they just wanted to send in a tip. Well done. I appreciate it. I'm sure Rob does too. Okay. Murray Reich writes, Saw Onward was a really nice family film about two brothers trying to restore the rest of their father's body. The ending was so powerful and emotional. Like I thought I knew where it was going, but a nice twist it had. Not the greatest Pixar, but delightful. Murray, that's exactly my feelings on that movie. It's exactly that. It's warm, it's charming, it's funny, and it's got a little bit of a different ending than you thought might have been coming. And I, for one, really appreciate. I know I ran into one fan of the John Campea Show who was at the same screening I was at, and they were a little bit off-put by the ending. And I'm like, as a matter of fact, I thought that ending was one of the strengths. But anyway, again, not top shelf Pixar, but a really good, charming movie. Rob, I don't know if you've had the chance to watch it yet.
I have not yet. I keep seeing it's on every time I turn on the TV. It's like Onward is on. I haven't watched it yet.
I recommend it. I recommend it. It's again, not Coco level, not up level, but right up there. I mean, it's a really, really nice film. All right, let's see here. Tiberius writes, the middle name of James Kirk. Greetings, John and the rest of the John Campea Show community. Hope all are safe and well. Recent talk of hidden gems to enjoy during this period made me think of mine. Sneakers. Sneakers.
What a cast in that
1992, folks, 1980, non-Bond Roger Moore flick, and The Party, 1968, Peter Sellers film. Listen, can we just take a second and reminisce on Sneakers? That movie is so underappreciated.
It's so underappreciated.
Because everybody I know who's seen is like, holy shit, John, have you ever heard of this movie Sneakers? I just watched it. Yeah! Robert Redford, Ben Kingsley, James Earl Jones makes an appearance. River Phoenix appears in it. David Strathairn, I believe, is in it. Dan Aykroyd, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, the cast is stellar. It's a wonderful, fun movie with some twists and turns. I can't recommend Sneakers enough. It's just a wonderful film.
I've loved that movie. I think it's Phil Alden Robinson directed it after he made Field of Dreams, right?
Really?
I think.
I did not realize that.
I think.
But yes, Tiberius, I totally endorse your recommendation. Murray Reich writes, Onward is a movie that is so reminiscent to me. Let's see. Losing a father 9 years ago in a car accident. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, man. Was so traumatizing for me. I just turned 20 at the time. Ending of the movie teared me up, reminding me that I wish I could see my dad for one day. Thanks, Pixar. Well, you know what, Murray? And first of all, condolences on your dad. I can very much relate with what you're saying on a secondary level. My wife, Anne, she lost her dad just a couple years ago now. My father-in-law, who looked like a total badass at my wedding. I'll show you a picture sometimes, Rob, of Anne's dad at our wedding. He just looked like a total badass. Lost my father-in-law, Anne's dad, a couple years ago. And as we were sitting in watching Onward, I seen 9 minutes of the film earlier because of D23. So I knew what the basic idea was, trying to get one more day with their dad. And so I knew it would be emotional for Anne. I knew it would be emotional. Anne's description of herself, this is not me saying this, understand that. This is Anne's own description of herself watching the movie, was ugly crying. And it was true, because every time I looked over at Anne, the whole thing, I just spent half of my time watching Onward was handing Anne yet another napkin and more tissue. She was just like, she's like ugly crying, but it was beautiful at the same time, it was really beautiful. But it is, and listen, I am so fortunate. I not only have my parents, I have like 3 out of my 4 grandparents still. So I'm really, really fortunate in that way, but it is an emotional movie at times, but beautifully done. And Rob, you get movies like this that have an emotional thing like this, and they can, what's the word I'm looking for? They can like cheaply use it to get cheap emotional responses.
Yes.
It's done beautifully and really feels organic and done, I feel like, with great sensitivity. And so my wife walked out with like completely a mess, but she loved it. You know what I mean? And anyway, Murray, so I can totally, I get what you're saying on that. So thank you for sharing that, man. Seriously, thank you for sharing that. All right, Jojo writes, 1 of 2. For my college class on alternate history, there's a class on alternate history? What? I was about to say something political, but I won't. But I mean, alternate history? What the hell is alternate? Anyway, for my college class on alternate history, I have to write a paper pretending that something happened that clearly didn't. For example, what if the Germans won World War II? which is the basic premise of that one show on Amazon, is it not?
Yeah, the Man in High Castle.
For example, what if the Germans won World War II? The scenario I choose is, what if Superman Lives was actually made? Naturally, I decided to watch John Schnepp's documentary for research. I was always intrigued by it, but I didn't get to see it till now. Oh my God, such an amazing and interesting documentary. John really killed it, and I wish I had watched it sooner. Yeah, well, thank you for that, for saying that in, JoJo. And yeah, I was actually talking about Rob, the other day. I brought up John Schnepp's because John Peters came up, and it got us into a conversation about John Schnepp. I said, John Schnepp's documentary, you actually got to go to John Peters' house and talk to him, his documentary. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it, blah, blah, blah. And man, it was, if you ever want to get, I wish, Rob, seriously, hindsight, I wish I had just pulled out my camera and documented, this is very meta, documented John Schnepp trying to get his documentary made.
Right.
Because it is a great object example of the passion and creativity that go into trying to get your own little project made, along with the heartbreak and pain and difficulty you face trying to do it and get it done. And then all the other nonsense that comes after it's done. I seriously, like his example of making that particular documentary was a great microcosm of that whole thing. But he really did do a really nice job with that movie, and I encourage a lot of people to see it. And Rob, I know you probably still have people talking to you about it, right? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in it. I wish I wasn't wearing shorts when they interviewed me, but hey. No, I loved that film, and it was, watching John, because I watched him make it over the course of the time he was making it, and it was just exciting to see his passion. I mean, he grasped onto this idea. He was like a dog with a bone. He was not going to let it go. And his passion carried him through, and he got it made. He got it. And it's first of all, it's a great documentary on the making of a movie that never got made. It's fascinating to watch. And I mean, he got Tim Burton. And it's really worth seeing. And
John Peters. And like Peters. It was like just such a well done thing. Anyway, Shane Roxas writes, I haven't seen every Ben Affleck movie, but I've seen enough to know that his performance in The Way Back, which I was late to the party on but finally got to watch, is one of his best. I don't remember ever seeing such intensity out of him. Love the movie. Glad to see him back. He's fantastic in it. And listen, I still think, man, it's hard to say because it is really, really good, but I still kind of think, not U-Turn, the one he did with Samuel L. Jackson. I talk about it all the time. Why am I freezing?
Changing Lanes.
Changing Lanes. Thank you very much, Rob. His performance in Changing Lanes, which is a movie most people haven't seen, and you should because it's really good. But yeah, him in this movie is absolutely fantastic. If the Oscars were held with no other movies coming out in 2020, Ben Affleck is winning the Academy Award for Best Lead Actor. Hitchcock is the GOAT writes, overlooked gem from 1998, The Spanish Prisoner, released 6 months after David Fincher's great The Game. This David Mamet gem is even better. Cat and mouse classic that would have made Hitchcock proud and boasts an understated, surprising performance by Steve Martin. Rob, you own the DVD to this, or the Blu-ray to this. I'm just guessing.
Actually.
Yeah, see, I just knew that you did.
No, I love this movie. I love David Mamet's work, and I think this movie... I saw this movie in the theater when it first came out, and I was kind of knocked out by it. I really just, the dialogue is great. It is a cat and mouse game. I don't know if I would say it's better than The Game, but I mean, it would make a great double feature. But it is a great film. It's a terrific, terrific movie. And Steve Martin is great in it. Great.
I love Steve Martin. You know what the funny thing is? Steve Martin has looked 50 for 50 years.
You're right.
Like you look at him now, it's like, okay, he looks a little bit older now than he did when he did, let's say, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Yeah.
But he's kind of just looked like that for so long. Anyway, okay, let's see. What's next here? Evelyn Quiroz writes, considering all the movies that were put on VOD, why do you think Disney has not done that with Harrison Ford movies Call of the Wild? I believe they are. I believe I just read an article that said they are going to be doing that with Call of the Wild. Actually, I'm positive I just read an article that said that. So I probably expect within the next week or two, you will probably see that one available for VOD. So very timely question, Evelyn, but the answer to that question is they are going to be doing that. All right, David Crabtree writes, Thanks for bringing up Six Pack the other day. The Kenny Rogers movie. That movie was a big part of my childhood, playing on cable a lot in the mid-'80s. That was my introduction to Kenny Rogers. By the way, the oldest of those Six Packs kids is an up-and-coming 17-year-old actress, Diane Lane. I talk about this movie. I never knew that. Was that actually Diane Lane? Okay, I'm sorry. I have to completely pause the show right now because I got to go over to IMDb, Six Pack, 1982, and holy crap balls, that was Diane Lane. I had no recollection of that being Diane Lane as the oldest girl. Holy crap. Dude, David, thank you for giving me my best little piece of trivia today. That is that bitch. I don't know why. That just fills my heart full of joy, Rob, finding that out.
Right before her Radiant Turns and The Outsiders and Rumblefish.
There you go. Oh my God. That is amazing. All right. Let's keep things going here. Thank you for that, David. Orange Hand writes, should try and write a novel or two during this quarantine. Hey, why not? Like, listen, it's a terrible situation. There's no getting around that. But make the best of it. And if you've got some free time, catch up on the classics. But if you've been thinking you want to write something, you got no excuse right now. Sit down and write. Go for it, Orange Hand. David Crabtree also writes, a lot of fun Office/Seinfeld discussion on here lately. I think from start to finish, okay, minus that finale, Seinfeld was the better overall show, but I think The Office was the stronger show from season 2 up until Carell's exit. It's my subjective opinion. Yeah, listen, it's true. Like, it's funny because our friend Kaori, Rob, she has also never seen The Office. So the other night, she was over and she's here most evenings hanging out because she only is either at home or she's here. And I guess I was upstairs working, and so Anne heard her say she never saw The Office. So Anne loves The Office. So they started watching The Office. They watched season 1 of The Office. And apparently Corey loved it. And I'm like, really? Because to me, much like Parks and Rec, season 1 of The Office is easily the weakest season. I think the season 1 is the weakest season, but it's still great. I said, oh my God, if she really liked the first season, I can't wait. Parks and Rec is the same way to me. Parks and Rec, the first season is the weaker one. Then they started really figuring out their identity, and then it really starts to sing. But I think that's a good observation, David. I do. I think that's a really good observation that you just made. All right. And I know I still got to get Rob to watch The Office. I'm going to curate 10 episodes. Rob and I are going to sit down and watch them. All right. Jordan's Channel writes, what software do you use for video editing? What do you use to overlay stuff on your live streams, like title cards? I'm new to all this. I watched your video about starting a podcast a while back, and it helped a lot. Video editing, right now, I kind of bounce back and forth between DaVinci Resolve and Adobe Premiere. I'm trying to wean myself off Adobe Premiere, to be honest, and just go Resolve. There's a little bit of a learning curve, though. But so, to be fair, right now, I'm using both of those for my video editing. For the live streaming, my shows, do I have my... Let me see if I can bring this up here. I'm not sure that I can. Let me see if I can. Give you guys a little bit of a behind the scenes look here. Maybe I am able to bring it up. Ooh, I am. Okay. A little bit of behind the scenes look here, guys. So, hello. All. Woo. There's Rob over there.
Hey,
hello, Rob.
yeah.
Right beside Henry Cavill, like carefully overseeing Rob, protecting him. Okay, so what I use... personally, I won't go long into this because for my live streaming, a lot of people use a free piece of software called OBS or Streamlabs OBS, stuff like that, vMix, different things, or XSplit. The superior piece of software, the best one out there for doing stuff like what I do is called Wirecast. Now, as you can see, I've got a massive kind of cockpit here, but this is Wirecast. And you can see here, I set up all my graphics and shots and all this kind of stuff. I use Wirecast for my main stuff. Then I keep a web browser open here that I can switch to as a Wirecast source. This monitor is a source. I keep my messages and stuff down here. Usually Rob is over here on this. This is where I Skype Rob in from here, and then I run that into Wirecast. So that is basically what I use. That is what I use to run the show. Always handy having a little webcam around to do stuff like that. So that's what I use. Oh, and I should point out one more thing. So also with Wirecast, this thing costs like $700 or $800, but it was worth it to me to do. So with Wirecast, there is this specific interface board that is made, this interface board is made specifically for Wirecast, this piece of software. And so I am able to look straight at the camera like this, right? But meanwhile, while I'm looking straight at the camera, I can have my hands down here and I know where all the keys are and I can switch between shots and graphics with my hand while I keep looking straight at the camera. So you never even know that I'm doing that. So that's what I use. That was a quick little intro. I know most of you guys probably weren't interested in that at all, but there's a little bit of a look behind the curtain. So I hope you find that helpful. Now, Wirecast is not free. You do have to pay for it. I mean, it's the best software out there for this, and it does a lot that the other things don't do. And you can pay up to the pro version. I think you can pay up to $1,000 for it, but it is the software I make my living on, so I paid that, So anyway, hopefully that you found that a little bit helpful, Jordan. I hope you do. But there are other options. Again, OBS is free. And OBS is a real nice piece of software. I actually use OBS when I do my play-in chats, Rob.
Oh.
So when I do my video game stuff, I actually, instead of using Wirecast, I just fire up Streamlabs OBS because it's really light, easy, simple to use. So I do that. But there are some options. Anyway, I hope you found that useful, Jordan. Let's see. Jordan also writes in, is there any chance the Snyder Cut lives up to all the hype? No. We have been talking about this for so long. Hope people don't have too many expectations. I think there are a lot of people who have a lot of very unrealistic expectations. I am not expecting, oops, I still have that shot on. I am not expecting anything good. And listen, and I like Zack Snyder very, very much. I love Man of Steel. I love 300. I mean, I think Man of Steel is the most underrated comic book film of all time. But I'm not expecting much out of it. But I still think release it because people, in times like these, Rob, give the people some joy. Why not give the people some joy if it's not going to cost you anything? Unless, of course, there's all those drawbacks that you pointed out as well. All right. Therese Wise writes, will the Green Lantern HBO series be in the DCEU? I doubt it. I think from what I understand, they are not planning on crossing those over. Rob, have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard about it, but I mean, if they're going to have their own DCEU or something, the Green Lantern Corps is such a linchpin of the whole thing that maybe they'd have to, but I don't know. Maybe it's just going to be unto itself. I just can't imagine that the Green Lantern, if you have Hal Jordan in it or Kyle Rayner or Guy Gardner, that if you go to Earth, you have to have some kind of DCEU presence, I would imagine. Wouldn't you?
I don't think so. I mean, they were able to do the CW shows forever without ever having a DCEU presence. So, I don't know.
But they had all other heroes, though.
Oh, yeah. They had other heroes.
I think they're going to have to.
They could do that. They could do that. Yeah. But I just don't know it would actually cross over with what they're doing in the movie universe. Right. But who knows?
Maybe their own verse.
Hey, listen. They had Ezra Miller pop up in Crisis on Infinite Earths. I mean, anything's possible. Anything's possible at this point. All right. Rob Love Shaw writes, who cares about the Snyder Cut? Release the cat butthole cut. Well, I'm sure Chris Carr would completely agree with you on that. Absolutely. I mean, I still think that's hilarious, the fact that we're all still talking about it on that level. All right. Thanks for sending that in. Connor writes, thanks for being a bright spot in this tough time. Top 10 all-time favorite movies. Number 10, Moulin Rouge. God, I love that movie. It's in my top 20. Thank you so much for mentioning it. Number 9, Life is Beautiful. One of my favorite foreign films of all time. One of the truly great emotional films you're ever going to see. Italian film, Roberto Benigni. Make sure you go check it out. Number 8, Lord of the Rings. Number 7, Castaway. Number 6, Lord of the Rings. Number 5, Godfather. Number 4, Gladiator. Number 3, Shawshank Redemption. Number 2, Star Wars. Number 1, Wing Commander. Dude, I don't know what it is. Everybody's talking Wing Commander these days. Really? Wing Commander. Really?
Maybe the game got re-released or something.
I mean, first of all, the game was great.
Yeah, it was great.
Had Mark Hamill, I believe, was voicing it.
Yeah.
The Biff from Back to the Future was one of the dudes in it. The game was great. And listen, I love Freddy and everything, but really? Wing Commander. I got a feeling Connor just put that in to pull my chin because I've seen a few people mentioning Wing Commander. I'm like, really? Wing Commander? But I don't know. Maybe I need to give it another shot, Rob.
No, you don't.
Do you own the Criterion Collection?
I do not own Wing Commander, John. I saw it when it first came out, but I'm like, it was all right. It's fine.
It was all right. It was fine. Okay, let's move on here. Augie Boyas writes, Just wanted to recommend a fellow film fan YouTuber named Minty Comedic Arts. He makes a ton of videos on movies that I love called 10 Things You Didn't Know About. He just did one for Highlander, Outbreak, and True Lies. Great Australian kid. Always good to promote your own fellow. And that's one of the great things about YouTube and why I'm always encouraging our viewers that if you have any inclination to do so, I encourage people to start YouTube channels, stuff like that, because so many film fans and every single film fan has a slightly unique perspective. And I think exposing ourselves to different perspectives is nothing but good for us as film fans. That's why I love hearing about that stuff. So good on you for recommending your fellow Aussie with that, Augie. I appreciate that, man. All right. And I'm sure they appreciate it too. Augie also writes, I liked the Joker movie. I didn't love it. My problem was that Joaquin Phoenix didn't play the Joker till the end. Kind of like your comment about how Brandon Routh's Superman was more of a character study and we didn't get enough Superman out of him. See, I've heard other people suggest that. And I see, as a matter of fact, I got into a mini debate online yesterday, Rob, with somebody who I was saying, like, somebody suggested a Spider-Man movie where just the whole movie is him just fumbling around with his powers, like not really being Spider-Man, like until the end. Then at the end, he's Spider-Man. And my reaction to that was, I don't know that the movie-going audience would accept that. In much the way that they didn't accept Superman Returns because of that, right?
Yeah, but I mean, one of the things I loved about the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie is when he's learning about his powers. They do a great job of him coming to grips with those powers, and it's a wonderful, the first 20, 25 minutes of the movie is that. And I don't think you need more than that. It was done so well in Raimi's first Spider-Man movie. I love that when he's, just learning about his web shooters and it was great.
Yeah. Now, what this person then brought up to me was, well, they did it in Joker. And my response to that, and I don't know what you think about it, my response to that is, I don't think you can compare the two situations. Joker is not a superpowered being with flashy theatrical, that could have flashy theatrical fight sequences and action sequences that a lot of people are waiting for when watching a Superman movie or a Spider-Man movie and all that kind of stuff. I really don't see them being as the same thing. I mean, Joker was designed to be a character study movie. They marketed it as a character study. They promoted it as a man's descent into his own madness. They promoted it as, so I see them as two different things, but Rob, do you maybe see them having more similarities?
No, I do. I see them as two different things as well. And really what the character of Joker is all about, somebody who is completely unshackled from society. The expectations and the morality and the belief systems that our society imposes on all of us. Joker is outside of that. He completely exists outside of the norms of society. That's why he's so transgressive as a character. Morality doesn't apply to him. Ethics don't apply to him. Normal logic doesn't apply to him. And that's what makes him so dangerous, because he just doesn't exist in that reality. And I don't know how you... I think the one thing the Joker movie did do is show how he became that way. And I thought it did a pretty effective job of that.
All right, next up, Amir writes, been watching Westworld Season 3, and so far it's better than the mess that was Season 2. Something that irks me, though, is the huge gaps between seasons. The show loses all momentum, and viewers struggle with what happened previously. Just think we won't see Season 4 until 2022. That was something that was brought up the other day, actually, Rob, about one of the things that I don't understand. I'm sorry, but if in the 1970s, with their limited budgets and limited technology and stuff like that, if they could crank out 24 episodes of a season and do one every single year, I just don't see why the lazy era of TV shows that don't do more than 10 episodes, by the way, I'm just joking around, just calling them lazy episodes, but in today's thing, they make less than half the episodes that other ones did. Granted, they do it with more quality. I don't get this whole thing about a year and a half in between seasons, 2 years in between seasons. I don't think that's good. Now, you can make the argument, I've heard some people make the argument, but absence makes the heart grow fonder. Oh, okay.
That's a great voice, man.
Maybe, but I don't know. It irks me. It doesn't ruin it for me. Don't get me wrong. Don't misinterpret. It doesn't ruin it for me, but it does irk me a little bit, Rob. What do you think about that? Do you think it hurts going that long in between seasons?
I do, because especially, look, in this day and age, I have found that when too much time passes between shows, there's so much content to watch. I'm like, wait, where were we now? You know, when Sex Education came back, the Gillian Anderson series that's on Asa Butterfield, that's on Netflix. When it came back, I'm like, what was this show about? I mean, I really liked season 1, but it took me a while to get up to speed. And I'm like, oh yeah, and I don't like that. Like, I'm really looking forward. Ozark started today. Right. Ozark season 3. I loved Ozark. Elizabeth got me into it, and it hasn't been that long, so I'm up to speed where we left those characters. So I can't wait to jump in. But I do think it kills the momentum in this streaming era. It's got to be less than a year. I hope preferably 9 or 10 months between seasons because it's part of the momentum.
All right, let's keep rolling here. Next up is Superman Steve writes, "Hey John, do you have any idea when Mulan is coming out?" No. I am a support worker for people who have disabilities, and one of my clients doesn't understand why it's not in the cinema. I can't find any information about it. I believe the reason you can't find any information on it right now is because they don't know when they're doing it. Listen, there's so much uncertainty. They can come out and say, yeah, we're going to release it in June, but they don't know if the theater's going to be open in June. Right. I mean, they should be, but they don't know that. So believe me, Disney would love to know when they're putting Mulan out just as much as you and I would. They would love to know when they can put this out right now. So I'm sure they're working on different scenarios, but what is best is don't announce 5 different release dates to us only to have to pull them later. Like, just wait till you know when you're going to be able to release it, then announce that and go with it. Warner Brothers did that with Wonder Woman 84, putting it into August, but I think August is a pretty safe bet. That we're okay by then. So I would expect to probably hear something from Disney in the next few weeks, but right now I do not believe there's any official word. Fotfom writes, "I got a bone to pick with you and Rob. I watched Age of Adeline on Rob's advice and loved it. However, neither of you mentioned that it's the perfect sequel to Highlander." She even gets the quickening. For those of you who watch Highlander, you know what the quickening is. It's basically the story of if there was only ever one. You know what? I think Fotfom is raising a good point, Rob. I think we're missing it.
That never would have occurred to me, but now that he's brought it up, I've got to hand it to him. Hats off to you, sir, if I had a hat on, because that's pretty funny. And it's not entirely untrue.
But you know what? That's as good of a mix as to me. In my head, totally know it's not true. But Matrix and Terminator are the same universe. I've just always had in my head that Matrix and Terminator are actually in the same universe. But that one, Age of Adeline and Highlander, that might even be a better one. I like that.
Now I want to watch that as a double bill.
Yeah, you watch that one
forever.
Back to back. Let's see. Thanos writes, "I just finished season 1 of The Wire, and I'm wondering why I haven't watched this show before. It's so good. I see a lot of people say the last season is the weakest. Do you agree? No spoilers, please." I don't know. Here's the thing. I was one of those people that was very late to the party on The Wire, but I kept having people I know who know a lot about the entertainment business saying, "Oh, the greatest television show of all time? Easy, The Wire." Like that just so many people I knew were just like, "Oh yeah, that's an easy thing. The Wire. The Wire is the greatest show ever made." And so I finally, a number of years ago, got around, hop on HBO and started binging it, and I could not stop. Now, It is not my favorite show of all time, but Rob, when you watch The Wire, not only are so many faces you recognize coming through, but I'm watching The Wire, and thematically, I'm like, oh, now I see where Game of Thrones gets all this from. Because there are themes and narrative hooks that they use that you immediately recognize from not only Game of Thrones, but some other HBO shows that have come out over the years. And I'm watching that and I'm thinking, this is so good. I don't know. I mean, the final season might be the weakest, but that's like saying, you know, Superman's weakest muscle is his baby toe muscle. It could still knock a building over. I mean, so yeah, The Wire final season, weakest season, but it's still a great season. Rob, your thoughts on The Wire?
I don't know, but you know, I thought the second season was maybe my least favorite season, but still.
Was that the one about on the port and the
docks,
shipping containers?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love The Wire. I think it's amazing. And I'll tell you something. I don't think there's ever been a television star-making turn like Idris Elba playing Stringer Bell.
Oh, Stringer Bell.
I mean, that character is, and his performance, I had no idea he was British. And I mean, oh, God, that was so great. And I wanted him to win. But when he starts going to business school, and I was like, man, I hope this guy wins.
And I'm not going to give anything away.
Yeah, I know.
I know
what you're going to say. I know.
So good though.
I know.
The show's so good.
Omar too.
You know what's funny? The guy who played McKelty, what's the main character's name?
McNulty, yeah.
McNulty.
McNulty.
The actor's name who plays that.
Yeah, why am I drawing a blank on his name?
So anyway.
He's in Gods of Egypt.
Everybody knew him from The Wire, right? And when
Dominic West,
thank you. When I went to go do the press junket for, I believe it was John Carter of Mars, or John Carter. I went to Arizona to do the press junket for that. It was great. They put us in the middle of what looked like a Martian desert to do it. And it came time for me to go meet. Now, I hadn't seen The Wire yet at that point. So, like, I go up to him, and I'm like, dude, I don't know how many people have told you this, but I've been such a huge fan of yours since seeing you in Johnny English as the villain in Johnny English. Why am I freezing on Mr. Bean's name? Rowan Atkinson?
Yeah.
The movie with Rowan Atkinson. Dude, I loved you in that. I know no one's going to say something, but I was sure it was probably, and I didn't even know he was in The Wire. I know, because I hadn't seen it yet, and I know it. But he was like, no one ever comes up to me and tells me that. I'm like, no, for me. But then I saw The Wire afterwards. Like years later, I saw The Wire. I'm like, oh my God, he must have thought I was such an idiot when I went up to him to say that to him. But whatever. Love that show. We got to keep moving here. Jay Meister writes, can we please stop it with the Snyder Cut? I'm so sick of this constant demand. And what do people want? An unfinished film? How's that better? I think at this point, Jay Meister, listen, I'm as sick of the Snyder Cut thing as everybody. But there are a group of people that it would really give them a lot, whether we think they should get joy out of it or not. There's a lot of people who would get a lot of joy out of being able to see it. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's, but you know what? There are people who would get joy out of it. And if we're in a shitty situation like we're in right now, and if it's no skin off WB's nose, why not just put it out to give everybody something to cheer about right now?
Yeah.
I mean, even if it sucks, who cares? At this point now, I don't know that I'd think that if it wasn't for the fact that we're living in this Corona situation, but we are. And so, I don't know, I kind of think, why not? But whatever, we'll have to wait and see. But understand, it's going to be the apple. It's not going to be the watermelon. As long as everybody understands that, then I think we'll be good. All right, next up, Sam O'Neill writes, I finally got around to watching Jojo Rabbit about 2 nights ago. Now watching it again. Such a great movie, and I finally get the shoe scene. That kid has got some acting chops. He absolutely does. All the kids in that movie have some great acting chops. Also, just realized Taika is in Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds.
Yep.
That's right. He was the buddy, right?
Yep.
Yes. I listen, the Green Lantern was not a great movie. Do not misinterpret me. The Green Lantern was not a great movie. I just didn't think the Green Lantern was as big of a train wreck as a lot of people make it out to be. The fart cloud was terrible.
Right.
Yeah, but the second half of the movie is not good. The movie's not good. But I don't think it's the train wreck a lot of people make it out to be.
I don't either, dude. Martin Campbell, who directed Casino Royale, directed it. And there's things in it that I like. I like the stuff on Oa. I like Mark Strong a lot in the movie.
Yeah.
There's things in it that I do like. It's not horrific. My problem with that film is the tone is wildly uneven. And I think that Martin Campbell was the last director who did not understand where comic book movies had evolved into. I think he was laboring under the assumption, I'm making a comic book movie. So the whole villain and the whole parallax thing, all of that is so over the top. It's like, what movie is this? It just doesn't gel.
You know what the worst part of that movie was to me? It wasn't even the fart cloud. It wasn't even the strange, my head. It wasn't even that. Worst part of it to me was, I liked what they were doing with Sinestro in that movie. I liked Mark Strong's Sinestro.
I did too.
And as we were getting towards the end of the movie, it's like, I'd watch another one just to see the eventual fall of Sinestro. But what they did was, he's a hero. He's a good guy. He's their moral rock. He's all this he's a true guardian of the universe. Then you get the post-credit scene. Hey, there's a yellow ring. I'm evil! It's like, it was so bad. It was so bad, but anyway, that was the worst part to me. All right, glad you got to see Jojo Rabbit sing, because that movie is truly unbelievable. All right, James L.H. writes, hi, John, I'm a big fan of Tombstone. Excellent, especially Kilmer's Doc Holliday.
So good.
Be my Huckleberry. Some of the best moments is when he is opposite Michael Biehn. It's Michael Biehn, right? Yes. Michael Bihn's Johnny Ringo, because I was saying it was Tombstone he was in, right? Yes, it was. Johnny Ringo, from the first meeting, quoting Latin right up to the final gunfight. I bring this up as you were talking Biehn previously. And of course, Michael Biehn is going to be in Mandalorian Season 2, which I'm super excited about. And you're right. Those scenes were great. And it reminds me of how great Val Kilmer really was for a period of time. Between that, Heat. I mean, I just loved Val Kilmer.
Doors.
The Doors. He was so good in The Doors. And you know what? I always forget the name of the movie. Doesn't matter. My first exposure to Val Kilmer was when he was a lot younger, and he did this spoof comedy movie with
Top
Latrine.
Secret.
Top Secret.
The Zaz brothers after, the Zaz group after Airplane.
I love Top Secret.
It's so good.
It's so good. And anyway,
it does not get enough love.
It does not get enough love. I'm so glad you said that.
And Real Genius.
Yeah,
He's so good in Real Genius.
Yep. Okay. Next up, we have James L.H., who also writes, Hey, John. So Black Lightning Season 3 finished in the U.S. Here in the UK, Netflix just dropped the season Thursday. Mandalorian in UK is weekly. I like weekly, but when it's something out and talked about for months, I think they should have dropped it whole. I disagree. And here's why I disagree. This has been a recurring debate about this whole thing, is that, well, you know, they should have just dropped it in the UK all at once, because everybody else is already talking about it. Well, if that's the problem, then dropping it all at once doesn't alleviate that problem. You know what I mean? Everybody's already talked about it, whether you watch it week to week or whether you watch it, you drop it as a binge. That doesn't alleviate the problem. The other thing is this, Rob. We in our little cell, our organism cell, we all think the things we talk about and like are the things that everybody else in the world is talking about and liking. Just because we got together every week to talk about Mandalorian every day, guess what? A hell of a lot of people didn't. And yeah, everybody knows about Baby Yoda right now, but Baby Yoda gets revealed in episode 1. So that's fine. So I think their release strategy is the proper strategy, and they know it, and that's why they're doing it this way. So that's just my personal feelings. And remember, I say that as a binger. I like binging, but I think this is the right way. Rob, do you think, now obviously you like the week-to-week release here too.
I do.
But do you think maybe they should have done it differently in the UK?
No, because they need to get people used to it. That's how they're going to do it. I mean, once everybody has Disney Plus, I know that it's new, it's unveiling for people around the world, but I think that's how they're going to release things, and I think I think it's good to get people in that sort of get used to that. Like I watched Devs, the Alex Garland sci-fi series.
That.
I really like it. I didn't realize there's only like 6 episodes or 7 episodes. I'm so bummed. There's only like 2 more episodes, but I've liked watching that show weekly because you think about it, you ponder it. You're like, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen next week, and when you binge something, it's like, it's over. Love is Blind, John. Boom, right out the door. Watched it all. Gone.
All right, let's move on here. Alpha Draogo writes, is Pocahontas too slippery to be made live action? No, I don't think so. I think there's ways you could, look, almost anything, there's ways you could do it that would make it very questionable and very bad and very much a train wreck. But I think there are ways to do it also that could be very profound and very strong. So no, I don't think in and of itself it is. Darth Impact writes, my top 5 sequels better than the original. Number 5, Captain America and Winter Soldier. Number 4, Terminator 2. Judgment Day. Number 3, Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan. Number 2, Dark Knight. Number 1, Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. What do you think? Yeah, those are some really good ones. It's a rare list, Rob, talking about sequels that are better than their originals. There's a few more I would add, like
The Road Warrior.
Road Warrior. I would add Rush Hour 2, I think is better than the original Rush Hour.
Lethal Weapon 2, maybe?
You know what? I'll go with that. Yeah, I'll sign up for that. Lethal Weapon 2. It's not a lot. It's not a huge list, but there are some out there. But
some people might say Godfather 2 is better than Godfather 1.
That's the eternal debate.
Yeah, I don't know.
I go back and I'll be honest, I go back and forth. I normally lean towards Godfather 1.
I do too, because it's self-contained and
But there's good arguments. 2 is so freaking, dude, the ending of 2. Ending of 2. I mean, you never forget that. Like, I won't say what it is for those of you who haven't seen it, but my God, guys, watch Godfather 1 and 2. But the ending of Godfather 2, you never will forget it. Like, just oh my God. Anyway, okay, let's keep moving here. We still got we got just a couple more minutes left here. Darth Impact also writes in, me being a bus driver in New York City, I'm in a Petri dish all day, staying safe as possible. I hope you and Ann and the gang are doing the same. God bless, guys. Stay safe. And dude, first of all, thank you to you and so many other people like you, dude, who are working in jobs that really are essential services that can keep our lives going. And it's a shame, and I count myself in this as guilty. It is such a shame that we need situations like this to happen to make idiots like me realize, holy shit, you know what? Thank God for those kids who work in the movie theaters. Thank God for those kids who work in the grocery stores. Thank God for those people who drive our buses. Thank God for those people who deliver our mail. It's a real shame that morons like me, it takes something like this to make me really realize and appreciate what you guys do. And so many people in jobs like yours. So thank you for that, dude. Listen, there are common sense things that even being in that Petri dish, wear the gloves, wear a mask. Although, there's things about the mask, but hey, it makes other people feel. You know what? When I go to the grocery store, Rob, Ann and I, we put on the gloves, but I also put on the mask. Now, I understand that the mask is really more for if you're the sick person. Right. I get that. But I realize too, if I put on the mask can make the other people, like if there's 4 or 5 other people in the store, and if me wearing a mask will make them feel a little bit easier, then do that. Make them feel a little bit easier. So, hey, dude, wash your hands, keep yourself clean, wash your clothes, blah, blah, blah. But thank you, Darth Impact, for doing what you do and keeping your community up and running. All right, Man Mountain Gherkin writes, where are we at? Top 9 animated. Number 1, Lion King. Thank you for putting Lion King in there. Number 2, Coco. Number 3, Beauty and the Beast. First film ever to be nominated for Best Picture when it was an animated movie. Number 4, Tangled, which I think is a little bit underrated, actually. Number 5, Book of Life. Number 6, Toy Story, all of them. Number 7, Aladdin. Number 8, Frozen. And number 9, Up. And you know what? I'm glad you put in Frozen. Because I'll tell you what, Rob. I know it's the cool thing to hate on Frozen. I like Frozen. I think Frozen's a really good animated movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why people, maybe it's just because the songs and they've heard people, but it's...
You get tired of it.
Yeah, it doesn't change the fact it's a great movie.
Yeah, let it go. I mean, how many times can you hear that before you start to get a little bit annoyed? I get it. Man Mountain Gherkin also writes, does it make sense for certain popular YouTube movie reviewers to temporarily do a super chat Q&A style show until new movies start coming again? I mean, I don't know. That's up for each individual YouTuber to decide. I mean, that's my normal style. So whether it's good for others, but here's the problem though. And I've had some very high profile people who have worked for me in the past say this themselves. Look, everybody's good at certain things and everybody is weak at certain things. There are certain things other YouTubers do that I would be weak at if I tried doing it. One of the more difficult things to do for a lot of people is to be able to talk freestyle off the cuff.
Yeah.
Without being able to pre-record, without being able to edit, with people throwing 40 or 50 topics at you, in the span of 30 minutes and not coming across like you don't know what the hell you're talking about. It's a really challenging thing. I will tell you, I've had some of your favorite movie style YouTubers saying, I can't do it to me. Who have tried it and really, it's not an easy thing to do. Now, there are other things that other YouTubers do that they would consider easy that I would consider really impossible because we're all good at certain things, bad at certain things. So, I mean, I don't know. If it's not something you'd be strong at, no. It's not something you should do. If it's not something you're naturally strong at. If it is, yeah, do it. I don't know. How much do you want to change your regular thing? I don't know, because consistency is important as well, I guess. I don't know, Rob, what would you say to that?
Well, yeah, I agree. I've had friends of mine that think that they can just do it. They look at me and like, if a poor schlub like yourself can do it, why can't I? And then they try and do it. They call me up and they're like, I don't know how you do this. I mean, it really depends. And it is quite a gift. I mean, I don't know if I would have started my own show, John, if I hadn't, met you or a Schnepp or something like that, and I was able to build up to it by being a guest on other people's shows, and that was really, really helpful. But it took me, I was on for years. I mean, next month I'll celebrate my 5th year on YouTube, and I started with you and Schnepp. And I've only been doing my own show for a year. I don't know if I would have been able to do it when I first started. I remember every show ending, and I wasn't even the host. I was just a guest. I'd be exhausted. My mind would be exhausted by the end of an hour.
Yeah, when I'm Ann always like took Ann years to figure it out, but like when I'm done one of these like 2-hour shows, I drag myself down. First of all, I have to edit some things and get some things prepped and uploaded to Ray. But then I crawl my body down the stairs and I like flop on the couch for like an hour, put on one episode of television, try to turn my head off and wait, because I'm just exhausted. Like you're trying to rifle through, you're going through 50, 60, 70, 80 topics a day, and you're trying to switch, and you're trying to monitor your audio, and you're trying to keep half an eye on the live chat at the same time. And it's, when a show is done, I'm done.
It's like, crazy. It's exhausting.
Anyway, but that's me. Anyway, it all comes down to doing what you feel works for you and what works best. All right, last couple of questions here, guys, and then we got to call it a day. Fabian Vegas writes, just rewatched Shazam. I love that movie. For the first time since seeing it in theaters. Such a fun film. The reported budget was $100 million, with the worldwide box office at $366. This means that it made a little profit, but what gives? Because it was released between Captain Marvel and Endgame? Honestly, no. I don't think that's why. I think there are a number of other issues that went into it. And honestly, if the movie wasn't as good as it was, it would have flopped. I think there's a couple things. Number one, today, while he is one of the OG classic superheroes, to a lot of people today, who's Shazam? Rob, I kid you not. Ann and I, you saw our Shazam and one of the Shazam family. Ann and I dressed up as the Shazam family, right? Well, we went to a Halloween party of some friends of ours that we don't get to see very often. And they had like 30 or 40 people there, a lot of people dressed in costumes. And I kid you not, nobody there, except for a couple of the kids. And the movie had already come out. A couple of the kids who were there knew what we were, but none of the adults, none of them knew who we were. Who are you? What are you dressed up as? And it's like, really? Red suit, big yellow lightning bolt? You're not getting this? But they didn't know. And I think a lot of people didn't realize that, like, today, a lot of people just don't know who or what Shazam is. On top of that, it was marketed very much as a kid's film.
Yep.
And it is certainly a kid-friendly film, but I think that was a movie for everybody. I love this movie. But yeah, I think there are a number of reasons. And to be honest, it could have gone much worse at the box office for them. It could have gone much worse. Rob, if you had to put your finger on something about really what attributed to its being, it wasn't a flop, but it wasn't a hit. I mean, what would you attribute that to?
No, I think it did come off more as a kid's movie. I think a lot of adults that might have gone to see Infinity War or a Civil War or a Marvel movie just didn't think it was serious enough. Like, it didn't have enough gravitas. It wasn't cool enough. And for someone like me, I'm older, so I grew up with the Saturday morning Shazam TV series.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, I Billy Batson and Mentor traveling the highways and byways of the land. And if reading Kingdom Come, the great DC graphic novel, Shazam plays a big part. Well, Captain Marvel plays a big part in that series. And so I've always loved Shazam. One of my favorite Mego action figures growing up was my Shazam figure because I love the color. I love the red and yellow in the costume. And, I just think that people just don't know, like you said, they just don't know him.
All right, last question of the day here, guys, is going to go to Jesse, who writes, since I haven't been allowed to self-quarantine because of my employer, looking forward to the weekend and tonight rewatching 1917 with the fam. What a great movie. Now, look. I also know some people, because of how crappy things are right now, like Aaron mentioned yesterday, she wants to watch comedies right now. She wants to see some fun adventure. She doesn't, like right now, because everything's so glum, so I don't know if everybody in the family might be in the mindset for 1917, but if you are, great, because the movie is freaking brilliant. It absolutely is, Jesse. And listen, if you got to be going into work and stuff like that, hopefully you're not in a crowded work environment. Keep yourself safe. Wear the gloves, dude. Wash your hands frequently. Just monitor yourself. Keep yourself safe, dude. That's the important thing. All right, I said that was the last question. We'll take one more here. Din Jardin writes, What is your probability of Disney filing for bankruptcy by year's end? 0. Absolute 0. They've closed the parks. They're losing money right now, but they've slowed down how quickly they're losing money. They've got enough reserves and stuff like that they'll be fine. They won't be doing that. All right, now this is a 3-parter, so we'll just get this in as the last question today. All right, Glenn Tracy writes, 1 of 3. Hi, John. I'm honored to be able to support the channel when I can. Well, thank you so much, Glenn. We just appreciate you being here and being a part of the community, dude. I sent a question last month asking you for your take for your take of Final Fantasy VII movie adaptation. You were rightfully skeptical. However, I was amazed by the support for the idea in the comments section. I know you're against the idea, and you aren't a fan of Dreamcast. Well, I'm not against the idea. Let's be clear about that. And you aren't a fan of Dreamcasting, so I realize I'm doubling down here. But to throw my Dreamcasting out there, Cloud, played by Zac Efron. You could get a Robert Pattinson, like initial backlash, going for his talent. Barrett Idris Elba, Tifa Alexandra Daddario, Eris Connor Leslie from Titans, Red 13 CGI, Yuffie Amy Garcia from Lucifer, Sid Thomas Jane, Vincent Luke Evans, Kate Sith Brazer TV voice, Sephiroth Tom Hiddleston, Hollywood, you're welcome. Here's my one problem with that. Zac Efron, I believe, is 33. Hold on a second. Zac Efron, age. Zac Efron is 32. He's 32. Cloud doesn't. I think you need somebody younger for Cloud. Like, all the other ones are fine. And again, I don't like getting into the X actor and X role, but I can tell you my one initial, and everybody knows I'm a Zac Efron fan. I'm a Zac Efron fan. But I think you need to go younger than that for Cloud, wouldn't you? I mean,
I think so.
I know Cloud isn't a kid, but
right.
I don't know. Rob, how would you think a Final Fantasy VII movie would be received?
Well, everyone loves Final Fantasy VII. I mean, the remake, didn't the upgraded remake just come out? People are playing that.
Or at least the demo of it just came out.
The demo did. People are excited. People love it. I love Final Fantasy VII, and I think it'd be great. But, I would love to see that movie. It would be, I can't even imagine how expensive something like that would be. But, yeah, I think Zac Efron's too old.
Yeah, I think that's what comes down to it for me as well. But listen, Glenn, you are absolutely not alone in that. I'm sure there are a lot of people that would, like, I question whether something like that can work in the North American audience, because you go back to the Spirits Within. What was that called?
Final Fantasy
Spirits Within. That was not received well. Now, you can make the argument that's because it's a bad movie, but people didn't go to see it to find out it was a bad movie for themselves.
Right.
So I'm not sure if it carries enough popularity amongst our general pop culture that enough people would go see it. But I'm not saying it definitely wouldn't. I mean, hey, dude, listen, if they can make a Lego movie, you can make anything. So who knows? And Glenn, you are absolutely not alone in your thinking there, dude. You are absolutely not alone. All right, listen, guys, for everybody else who still has questions outstanding, from Juan Espinoza, Jason, Chris Warden, and everybody else all the way up, do not worry. A little bit later today, I'm going to do an open mic, because I found people really liked. I did just, instead of doing a companion video, I did an open mic, and we just did it live because people are wanting some live stuff right now. So that's what we're going to do a little bit later today. Probably like around, I'm thinking like around maybe 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time this afternoon. We'll do an open mic where we're going to start off by getting through all the remaining questions that you guys have sent in, and we'll take a few questions more from you guys as well. So listen, guys, thank you so much for being here today and making this show a part of your day. We appreciate that to no end. A special thank you to all of you guys who sent in questions, not just because, number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported the channel while you're doing it. And all of us here on the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you very much for that, guys. Listen, guys, stay home, stay safe, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I want to thank, of course, the one and the only, the wonderful, had to get up unexpectedly and come into the studio to do the show today. Rob, thanks for your flexibility. Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations, the show about something.
And guys, you, of course, can just follow me on all my different social media, simply at John Campea. Again, remember, keep your eyes open. We're going to do an open mic later this afternoon. We'll get around to all the rest of the questions. Rob and I will be back again tomorrow for the next installment of the John Campea Show. Guys, thank you so much. You are the champions. We'll see you next time. And until then, my name's John Campea. Bye-bye.